Testing, 1, 2. Okay, people, what it do? It's your man online, Bill Money. I'm tapping in with another video. Thanks for clicking on this video. Take a moment to smash that like button for me, and if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I'm going to ask that you please subscribe to the channel and also click on the notification bell so that you'll be alerted anytime I drop a new video. Thanks again. Happy New Year. Today is the 1st, and I'm going to do a story about a couple of individuals in particular that are trending topics right now. One person being Mob James, and the second person, one of our favorite culture vultures, DJ Vlad. And now it's been recently brought to the public's attention. Apparently this has been known or talked about in intimate circles, but the revelation that Mob James is a confidential informant or in some capacity working with the government to put people behind bars. There is some paperwork floating around that is seemingly implicating Mob James in that scenario. But before I delved into that, I wanted to post this video. Now, I posted this video on my other channel back in June, Dirty Laundry Media. I'm going to ask that you go ahead and check that channel out. Plenty of content on that channel. I have almost 2,500 subscribers on that channel. So definitely click the link in the description box and check out Dirty Laundry Media. But I posted this video just to illuminate the subject of snitches and paperwork, because the popular take is that you can't put somebody in a snitch jacket, or you can't put a snitch jacket on someone without paperwork. However, that's not always the case. There are plenty scenarios within the legal system that allow for people to give information and to not be named in any particular documents that are available to the public. So this video kind of delves into that. I'm not a legal scholar or a lawyer, but this is just some information that I put together from my research. If anybody else has anything to add, please drop down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Smash that like, smash that subscribe. Thanks again for tapping in. It's your man online, Bill Money, and I'll see you on the next video.
Nobody, niggas talk all that shit, man. Niggas talk all that shit. I'm talking about all these rappers and all these fake gangsters, man. Niggas, you go to the feds for a fucking RICO, and they offer you 20 years and you're a millionaire. You're telling.
Breaking news. If it bleeds, it leads. In your news today.
You are now tuned in to Dirty Laundry Media.
Stand by.
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Dirty Laundry family. This is Bill Money tapping in. Thanks for clicking on this video. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I humbly ask you to please do so. And click like on this video. And thanks again for your time and tapping in. So check it out. What I want to talk about is this phenomenon of snitching, if you want to call it a phenomenon, or the obsession with hip-hop culture and snitching. And one of the aspects that we always hear when we hear about snitching is that you are not allowed to call somebody a snitch or give them a snitch jacket if they don't have paperwork. What I want to do today is to debunk that myth and that theory that if one doesn't have any paperwork attached to a court case, that they're not a snitch. We're going to talk about confidential informants. We're going to talk about sources of information, different aspects of snitching, and how snitching is accomplished without leaving a paper trail. So we can put that to rest today. When you hear people who are accused of snitching asking for folks to produce paperwork, knowing full well that in many instances, if you're a confidential informant or a source of information, that there is no paperwork. If you're not testifying in court, there is no paperwork. So if you're just out here telling, giving information, getting paid for it, or whatever the case may be, there's no paperwork. So let's get on into it, people, and let's see what we have. So let's go over a few definitions as it relates to confidential informants, their handlers, and some of their procedures. The first definition we have is sources of information, or SOI. A source of information are persons or organizations not under the direction of a specific police officer. A source of information furnishes information without compensation and will not take an active part in an investigation. When a source of information seeks compensation or becomes an active part of an investigation, their status changes to confidential informant. SOIs do not require registration. So a source of information would be someone who is just offering information just for the sake of offering information. They're not going to be compensated. They're not in any trouble, so they're not trying to shave some time off of their sentence or get charges dropped. This is somebody who would be akin to a Huggy Bear on Starsky and Hutch. Somebody who just drops information to the police from time to time, just because. The next up, we have confidential informants. Confidential informants are persons under the direction of a specific police officer giving information or other lawful assistance on criminal activity. Confidential informants take active parts in investigations and or receive compensation. Register all CIs. So a CI, or a confidential informant, is somebody who does have a handler and they are taking an active part in an investigation, and they will receive some sort of compensation. They will not more than likely testify in court, so in that case there won't be a record of any testimony, but the information that they provide to law enforcement will be used in an active investigation, and if it goes to court, it would also be used in the prosecution. Next up is confidential defendant informants. Confidential defendant informants, or CDI. Confidential informants who are current defendants in pending court cases and expect compensation in the form of judicial or prosecutorial considerations. Register all CDIs. So a CDI is actually caught up in the system, more than likely facing charges, and in exchange for leniency, they will exchange information on other cases to help law enforcement prosecute other defendants or advance other investigations. Next, we have inactive confidential informants. Inactive confidential informants are not debriefed within a year or declared inactive by the control officer, so they're no longer in play at the moment. Debriefing is initial and continued questioning of confidential informants. Intelligence gathering on backgrounds, motives, limitations, and other information they have on all types of criminal activity. So that's when they might just call a CI in, meet up with them, and he'll give them the rundown on everything he knows as it pertains to whatever they're dealing with, new information that might help with an investigation or prosecution. Next, we have compensation, which is money or judicial prosecutorial considerations. Either you're going to get paid money or you're going to get some sort of exchange of leniency as it pertains to any court cases you're involved in. Informant Control Officer, or ICO, is an officer controlling the confidential informant. And the Informant Secondary Officer, or ISO, serves as contact for the confidential informant when the control officer is unavailable and acts as a witness for the control officer. So these are just a few of the different ways that snitches can be employed, either as a source of information, a confidential informant, or a confidential defendant informant. And in the first two, again, sources of information, confidential informants, there is no paper trail because there is no compensation for sources of information. And for confidential informants, they're not actually going to testify in court. Okay, so again, I just want to mention, when it comes to, this whole obsession over snitching, who's not snitching, recently we can all point to the case of Tekashi 6ix9ine, in which he ended up cooperating in exchange for leniency in a federal racketeering indictment, as a result of his relationship to the 9 Trey Bloods. And in that case, it was a huge mess. In that case, 6ix9ine, being that he was the popular rapper, the face of the situation, he took most of the darts and the arrows for his part in snitching, and he pretty much, made no bones about it. He had his reasons for doing so, but what's gone overlooked in that case is the fact that there were already several confidential informants involved in that case. That case had been ongoing for several years prior to 6ix9ine's involvement with 9 Trey. They were already on the radar of the feds. Throughout the investigation, there was mention of confidential informants being employed in and around the 9 Trey Blood 6ix9ine situation. There were cameras, there was audio, and there were a lot of components and moving parts involved in that investigation with people whose names didn't actually end up being revealed. So if you want to see an incident, and again, everybody made 6ix9ine the poster boy for snitching, but there were a lot of snitches in that case. There were a lot of wiretaps and even hidden surveillance cameras used. Some of your favorite rappers and those who are affiliated with them were involved in that case, or in either under investigation, or probably have provided some information. Definitely involved and caught up on wiretaps, as we can recall Jim Jones being heard on a wiretap with what's the guy's name, Mel Matrix, in which he was ordering that Tekashi 6ix9ine be violated. So we can only imagine how many conversations have been recorded and how they use this information to acquire more information in a case. So somebody like Jim Jones, for instance, gets caught on the wiretap ordering somebody to do violence to someone. They may not indict or bring Jim Jones up on charges because he's a valuable piece. And if they can get somebody like Jim Jones on a leash, somebody who can provide information to different investigations, different ongoings within the hip hop community or on the street, then they would use that to coerce him to cooperate. So this is how easy it is to get caught up. So watch what you're saying over the phone, and definitely watch your social media transmissions. Okay, so moving on. So next, we're going to talk about the types of people who make the best confidential informants. And this is a part of the criteria that a person must meet To be established as a CI, number one, the person must be in a unique position to help the department in a present or a future investigation. Number two, the person will not compromise department interests or activities. And number three, the person will accept the direction necessary to effectively use their services. So, number one, in a unique position to help the department. So somebody in a unique position, usually somebody in a criminal organization, close to the top or at the top. Somebody who has information on the inner workings of an organization, criminal activities, so forth and so on. So if that's you, you may be recruited at some point to be a confidential informant and work for the feds. Number two, the person will not compromise department interest. That's just basically saying the person is not going to, in turn, inform others of their activities. They'll be discreet and they won't disclose what they have going on to those outside of the loop. And number three, meaning they'll cooperate. The person will accept the direction necessary to effectively use the services. So they're willing to cooperate. They're going to agree to accept direction. There may be specific protocols that they have to follow. And of course, they'll be having, directives as far as information that they may be asked to obtain about certain specific activities. So when you look at the entertainment world, specifically hip hop, specifically rappers with close ties to the streets, who represent that street lifestyle, who talk about it in their music, and most who those who try to live it out in real life. So if somebody's in a position, and you heard the audio at the beginning with Casanova, where he basically stated if somebody was in a position as an artist and they're on top and they're getting to the bag, and then they get put in a situation where they're on the hook for some criminal activity, such as he is now, if they're faced with the option of having to snitch or become a confidential informant in order to remain free, most times they will agree to cooperate. And this not only goes for rappers. There's a long list of mafia made men who fell by the wayside, who eventually, rolled over, as they say, and became witness for the feds. They're mafia made men who have been confidential informants for decades, unbeknownst to their family members for decades. So, it's nothing new under the sun. They have their methodology down pat, perfected, and, organized crime being way more sophisticated than most street gangs. If they were able to be compromised by confidential informants, much more so are these street gangs vulnerable to these tactics. So, when I look around and I see certain hip hop artists who constantly have contact with law enforcement but never do any time, my antenna goes up. Or if they do a little bit of time, my antenna goes up, because these guys do not want to lose their lifestyle of privilege and access. So, most times, if they are involved in any criminal activity and they get pinched, they will cooperate. And let me also say this. When it comes to the whole undercover operation game, keep in mind, when it comes to sting operations, whether they're involving drugs, guns, human trafficking, all sorts of law enforcement operations on many different levels employ undercover officers. They employ confidential informants, whether it be food stamp fraud, unemployment fraud, depending on how big the case is, or how many people are involved. They may employ all sorts of measures, wiretaps, surveillance camera, hidden cameras. People may be mic'd up, going to make transactions. There may be sworn officers undercover as rap artists. Who knows the lengths that these law enforcement agencies will go to get a conviction or to prosecute cases in order to advance their careers or whatever the agenda may be. So, we have to keep in mind and use our imagination. And we're not just being fanciful, but we're looking at these documents here, and we're knowing, the backhanded tactics that law enforcement uses. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. And not indicting anybody in particular, with this video, but just pointing out the obvious and some things for us to consider when people are always screaming they don't have any paperwork, but they're steady skating out of jail, beating case after case. So at some point, you got to start asking questions. So this next document just shows some more procedures. Number 4 says document all significant contacts with CIs on Form 277A, controlling district section unit debriefing report. And examples of significant contact are receiving information about criminals or criminal activity, including information from phone conversations. B, any compensation made to CIs. Again, they do receive compensation, sometimes money, many times money. Any contact resulting in an arrest or the execution of a search warrant. So if somebody gives some information which results in them making an arrest, or if they execute a search warrant, then they have to document that. Or if the CI becomes involved in criminal activity. So if the criminal, where the confidential informant gets cased up, then these things, and these are instances where, it pays to be a confidential informant, because if it's a petty crime, then your ICO can usually get you out. So that's why a lot of people have a revolving door or get out of jail free card, but perhaps they're confidential informants and they have somebody working with them on the inside. And let me circle back really quickly to Greg Scarpa Sr., who I flashed his picture on the screen earlier, who was a 30-year confidential informant. Now, I can't remember exactly what family Greg Scarpa was with out of New York City, but he was with one of the 5 mafia families. He was a made man, and he was a confidential informant for almost 30 years, unbeknownst to his family members, and was constantly providing information to the FBI. He was also receiving lots of fringe benefits. His handler was definitely breaking and bending the rules for Scarpa. He was known as the Iceman, I believe, because he was just such a cold-blooded killer. And over the years, he was able to get away with a lot of crime, a lot of heinous crimes, and even raise some of the eyebrows of some of the family members, but they could never really, figure out what was going on. But eventually it was revealed that he was an FBI informant for almost 30 years. So when somebody like Troy Ave says the streets are a myth and people question what he means or doubts the authenticity or the truthfulness of that statement, this is what he means, is that the streets are a myth and that nobody keeps it real and nobody abides by the so-called street code when it comes time to prove how gangster you truly are. Most people are gonna fold. Most people are gonna play ball. You know, freedom is not free, as they say. And when you want to play these games, these cops and robbers games, and you get caught in these situations, and you don't have the upper hand, you know, it's easy to make a decision and to decide to choose your freedom or less time, whatever the options may be. So let's not be doubtful when we consider our favorite celebrities who might cooperate with law enforcement in order that they might remain active in the game and continue to profit from their celebrity, from their fame. You know, we look at people like Vlad, and I'm just gonna mention him, not even gonna get into it. You know, he could potentially be working with the feds. He doesn't have to have a badge. He doesn't have to have paperwork, but he's in a unique position to offer information to law enforcement about criminal activity that he gleans from his many guests, you know, hours and hours and hours of footage that I'm sure the FBI would love to pour over and see if they could tie some of this information to some cases or some investigations, things of that nature. So when we say Vlad is a Fed, you know, in the literal sense, no. But is it possible that he's cooperating? Yes. Does he pose questions as if he was law enforcement? Yes. Is his energy that of a Fed? Yes. So we call him a Fed. You know, there was one instance where he was rolling up on Plies with a camera, asking him about how many cars he had, what kind of cars he had. And, you know, Plies looked at him crazy. And then he asked him about his jewelry. And then he asked him about his tattoos. And then, Plies was like, yo, are you the police? Because these are police questions.
You got the tattoos right there. What are your tattoos on your arms?
What we doing, man? Right now, this police line up or something. When I get booked in, they want to do all the same thing he's doing right now.
The same thing.
Yeah, they want no tattoos. They want no. Damn.
I feel you. How many cars you got these days, man? You a car aficionado?
Well, I tell you, this is police shit. Hey, Russell, don't you send nobody with, man. This some police interrogation shit. I'm telling you.
And people who are outside the culture, there's something they don't necessarily understand, that you don't actually have to be a police to be labeled the police. Your energy could be that of the police. You could ask a lot of questions. You could be nosy. You could be nervous. And, you know, somebody might call you a Fed. So we use that term loosely, but there is context to it when we use it. So just keep that in mind as well. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video. A lot more could be said, but just wanted to debunk that myth that paperwork is always readily available if somebody's cooperating with law enforcement, and that is patently untrue. So get down in the comment section, let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit that like button. And again, if you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button as well. And don't forget to click on the notification button so you can be alerted when I drop hot new content. This is Bill Money signing off for Dirty Laundry Media. See you on the other side.